They say true happiness is all about the simple things in life. And what's simpler than a deserted Palm Beach with tranquil blue waters lapping at its shores? For many vacationers, the beaches of the Dominican Republic are like heaven on earth. But beyond the white sandy beaches, life can be harsh for those who live on this island. The Dominican Republic is a land of contrasts. Yet fortunately, for all who live here or visit, each still manage to find a bit of happiness. The Dominican Republic is located on the second largest island of the Antilles, called Hispaniola. It occupies the eastern half of the island and is neighbors with Haiti on the west. More than 2 million tourists visit here every year, and it's not hard to see why. Beyond the beaches and seaside resorts are a part of the Dominican Republic few foreigners ever see. Rafael Alvarez and his wife, Mercadita, run a small filling station at Las Tarenas on the shores of the Atlantic. The fuel is measured out in beer bottles, and Rafael earns 20 pesos per gallon, around 70 cents in U.S. currency. But it can take him up to half a day to earn that sum. Despite the challenges, Rafael and his wife always choose to see the bright side of life.
Ah, bien. Y ahora nos sentamos feliz.
Era bien, pero es como...
Eso está medio flojo. Ahora.
¿Cómo así?
Como que no hay movida.
Pero usted tiene esperanza de que lo haga.
Dios tiene que cambiarlo porque hay algunos que ponen la mano, pero hay algunos que no ponen mano y hasta se muere uno del hambre. Pero eso que le gustan poner la mano no se le impide una cosa como la otra. Pero esto está cambiado, nada más nos falta moneda para comer y vivir la vida.
Mercadita used to cook for tourists on the beach. But business has slowed, so she's been forced to shut down shop. Today, the family will be eating beans and rice, just like they did yesterday, just like they will do tomorrow. This chicken is the family pet. It's one of their few possessions. The family's hut is a bit shaky since the last hurricane, but luckily it's holding up. The television is another prized possession and somehow always seems to bring the family together. Whenever there's a good action movie on, the grandchildren are the first to show up for a visit. Sun and sand seem to be soaked up mainly by tourists. Those who have grown up by the sea often prefer relaxing in front of the TV. Happiness for them is when the electricity supply isn't cut off during a game. Rafael has never heard about that Caribbean feeling and is amazed that people spend money to visit and sit in the blazing sun. Santo Domingo, the overpopulated capital, is about 125 miles inland. This city of over 2 million people is home to about 1/4 of the entire population. Everyone here is on the same quest for happiness. In fact, happiness can be bought all over the city. Lottery tickets offer a small, if not distant, hope of becoming rich. The national lottery is more like a voluntary tax. Practically everybody buys tickets with the belief that Lady Luck could strike. No one in town seems to have ever won the jackpot, but most keep giving it a shot.
Bueno, el problema es que nosotros los dominicanos jugamos, principalmente porque entendemos que tenemos alguna esperanza de jugar. Siempre pensamos juntarnos con algún dinerito juntos. El dominicano casi no juega por vicio, juega porque cree que puede ganar.
The ticket sellers buy tickets to sell and make a profit, but often end up with a surplus. Every single ticket they have for sale has been bought from a state-run outlet with their own money. The stacks of tickets are more like small shares to these purveyors of luck, and their costly merchandise is insured accordingly. For those sellers who keep their tickets until the draw, they might just break even. Like all games, you must play to win.
Los juegos, si pierdo yo el dinero, los juegos. Pero ya eso, la lotería ya dependió de eso, ya lo vendió. Entonces, si tú lo compras, tú eres dueño de ello. Y tú, si tú lo quieres vender, lo vendes, si no lo juegas tú.
¿Qué juego? El que no juega no se saca, porque hay que jugar para perder o ganar. Así que esa es la vida. Me bebo mi trago, voy y me tiro mi son y mi cosa y así. Bebí la vida, lo que le queda ya.
Drinking and dancing is a big part of the island life. It's a time to let loose and celebrate. Pateo de Joseito Mateo is an island legend and well worth a visit. Here, the dance floors are packed and the local sounds can be heard long into the night. In Argentina, they have their tango. Cuba has its son. In the Dominican Republic, they have the vibrant merengue. "30 years of bloody dictatorship, failed economic policy, corruption, and hurricanes. Whatever hardships endure, there has always been and always will be music and dancing." Santo Domingo is the heart of the Dominican Republic, and it's here where music lives and breathes. Merengue seems to be heard from every street corner, cafe, and car radio. Those seeking great music head to this local gas station. In the Villa Maya area of the city, young people have turned a garage into a free open-air disco. It's a one-stop shop for fun and entertainment. For a few years now, this Esso station has been the place to be. On the weekends, all roads lead to the Tiger Market. The tempo slows down a bit at the Monumento del Son, a traditional dance hall where the older generation meet for a spin around the dance floor. Here, Pablo Heredia and his band play various Caribbean rhymes. For Pablo, music is his first love and his passion.
Yo tengo alrededor de 25 años, digamos, con ese tipo de música. Y esto es un país versátil, donde la gente hace diferentes cosas. Porque quizá la paga, el dinero que se recauda por cada cosa, no es lo suficiente, hay que vivir de varias.
For a musician, having more than one job is a necessity. During the day, Pablo Heredia works for the city council, a job he's held for 15 years. Wages are so low that Pablo, the father of 7 children, has to come up with novel ways to keep his head above water. He's proud of the work his housing department does, and like all Dominicans, he loves his country. But like most people, he's got an opinion on politics.
Y 65 días al año, hablando de política. Se trabaja poco precisamente porque hay demasiado político, hablan demasiado. Entonces, si yo fuera presidente, se metió un proyecto de ley para que eso se hablara menos, que fuera un 10% que se hiciera eso nada más. Y que el otro tiempo que se pierde en eso se dedicara a la producción del país.
For the country to move forward, it relies heavily on dollars from abroad, mainly in the form of tourism. The coastal edge of the city is in line for development, but currently, the beach is more like a landfill than a luxury resort. Over time, this coast is transformed from untouched shores to dumping grounds. The only people who use this beach as a recreational area live nearby and can't afford to travel elsewhere. Unfortunately, the cleaner beaches are a distant 12 miles away. Along the coastal road, concrete skeletons reach for the sky. This strip will house the most exclusive hotels in the Dominican. Eventually, but it's still a long way from becoming the tourist paradise of tomorrow. Many tourists prefer visiting the sites of the island's colonial past. It was in 1492 that Columbus set foot on the island and turned Santo Domingo into the first European locality in the New World. The first cathedral on the American continent stands at the center of the historical town. The Zona Colonial is a site of global culture and is the pride and joy of the entire city. The ancient hospital may lie in ruins today, but pigeons have made it their home, filling it with life. El Faro a Colón, or the Columbus Lighthouse, dedicated to the famous explorer. Over 100 feet wide and nearly 800 feet high, this temple not only claims to house the grave of Columbus, but is a symbol of the nation's vibrant spirit. Despite its impressive presence, many Dominicans consider the building to be a waste of precious resources. The construction of the lighthouse used up nearly all the concrete produced on the island, and the 50,000 people who lived here in a former slum were forced out to make way for the $50 million Colossus. A neighboring quarter that has survived is behind a wooden fence. The poverty and struggle of the people on the street is neatly kept from the visitor's eye. 3/4 of the population live in abject poverty, and getting out isn't easy. Many try their luck abroad and support their families from afar while saving up for a better life back at home. Doña Maria worked in Spain and has now bought a small house for herself and her mother in Hareda. She's a seamstress, works from home, and is now happily self-sufficient.
Mi país con uno como le da la gana, somos dueños de nuestra tierrita. Yo duré 8 años sin venir a mi país, todos los días anhelaba venir a mi tierra. Y uno se va afuera porque a veces la economía de este país, para los más pobres, es más pobre y el rico más rico. Entonces, como se vive así, tú sabes que es así, pues uno sale a buscar un centavito, pero el que lo tiene vuelve para su país.
Connecting north with south is the Carretera Duarte. It's the main access linking the Caribbean to the Atlantic. Reaching the southern part of the island means cutting through the northern mountains. High in the mountains live people who rely on a little luck and a lot of skill for their survival. They are amber prospectors. For them, the hectic coastal towns have little appeal. Those are simply places to sell their amber jewelry to tourists. Up here, life revolves around the never-ending search for the hidden treasure deep in the hills. Antonio and his two sons have already made a find today. This type of find does not happen every day. If it did, they'd be...
Para conseguir ese ámbar. Como en 5 minutos eso. Pero ustedes duraron 5 minutos, pero tenían ¿qué tiempo tenían para...?
Desde por la mañana. Desde por la mañana hasta la mañana.
Hasta las 10.
A las 10 de la mañana.
After a successful morning, they set off again in search for more.
Oye. Y ahí el chico, que haga buche la mujer esta vainita ahí. A ver si hay una hambita hoy temprano,
Finding the valuable golden gem requires a long, slow descent into a low-roofed mine as far as half a mile down. A piece of amber the size of a child's fist will bring in between $10 and $20. The porous rock has to be removed with great, extremely fragile. Perhaps the most valuable discovery is finding amber with an insect that has been trapped in the stone for 40 million years. This rare find would increase the stone's value immensely. Antonio and his sons decide to call it a day. Finding the amber today gives them a bit of financial security. Often, there are long stretches of searching that lead to nothing.
Cuando hay se va la semana entera, pero ahí se van 2 meses y 3 y no se encuentra.
Cuando hay aparece y dura 1 mes y 2 así, pero cuando no, cuando se acaba, dura mucho para volver y después vuelve y dan otra vez.
Que no es una mina fija, tú ves.
Despite the uncertainty of the trade, these prospectors manage to forge on day by day. West of here, the fertile Green Mountain ranges reach almost 10,000 feet above sea level. The destination, Jarabacoa in the foothills of the Cordillera Central. This diverse landscape, with its magnificent valleys, pine forests, and crystal-clear mountain streams, mainly attracts Dominicans. The air is free of pollutants, and temperatures are a few degrees cooler here. But it's still warm enough to go swimming or rafting. Jarabacoa is a favorite weekend destination for many Dominicans. Friends gather at the Rio Yaque del Norte, a clear mountain stream with a few white rapids and some calmer waters for the less adventurous. Many locals prefer freshwater and the fun of big crowds. And after taking on the rapids, there are many other choices for fun in the sun. And in the evenings, there are more than enough reasons to turn up the heat in the small town of Jarabacoa. Well-known bands draw large crowds and put on a show that lasts through the night. Quinito Mendez is a musician from Santo Domingo. His music is recognized far beyond the shores of the Dominican Republic. Courtersy is a town further down the coast. Here, the grand villas line the beach, and the ocean views seem to never end. Nabi Baum is happy to call Courtersy home. He's a recent transplant from Falkensee, Germany, where he lived most of his life just a stone's throw away from the Berlin Wall. For Nabi, the cold climate of Germany couldn't compare to the warm days in the tropics, so he bought himself a one-way ticket to Santo Domingo and has been here ever since. He's worked in pubs, made German sausages, and now prospects for gold. Most who come here have money in their pockets and go home when it runs out. Nabi, on the other hand, has managed to make a life for himself from scratch. Soon, he'll be moving into his dream villa in Courtersy. His new home once belonged to a dearly departed pop star.
Das ist die ehemalige Villa von Falco. Und Falco braucht sie ja nicht mehr. Und schon haben wir uns gedacht, nehmen wir sie.
Was kostet?
Das Ding kostet hier 460.000 Mark.
Kriegst du in Falkensee auch schon was für?
Da kriegst du in Falkensee auch schon was für, aber hast nicht 30 Grad das ganze Jahr über. Und hast nicht die gute Nachbarschaft hier ringsherum. Hast das Meer nicht, 2 Minuten entfernt. Also so viele Dinge, die es in Falkensee nicht gibt.
In Courtersy, like many other parts of the country, two different worlds live side by side.
Das ringsherum ist es schon sehr arm, das wissen wir auch alle. Aber wir wollen uns nicht mit dem messen. Wir wollen einfach in der Karibik leben und schön leben, so wie wir es eigentlich gewohnt sind von zu Hause. Also der gewisse Standard muss schon bleiben. Muss.
Nabi must travel to the country's center in order to find gold. The Cordillera Central, a region of majestic mountain country, is part of the protected national park, an absolute paradise for nature lovers. Rio Bao is the river where Nabi, the gold hamster as his friends call him, seeks out his fortune. He and his through chilly knee-high water in order to reach the bend where they're most likely to strike gold. Nabi imported specialized equipment from California. It provides him with oxygen and, more importantly, including any gold from the riverbed. The light materials are spit back to the river, and only the small stones and metal remain. Nabi struggles to hold on to the heavy vacuum cleaner while resisting the river's flow. The water isn't deep, but it is cold and powerful. It's an uncertain and often challenging trade, but one that could lead to big payoffs.
Oh, es sieht sehr gut aus hier, ja. Hat einen Boden, sehr rot der Boden. Also da kann man sehen, dass hier hunderte von Jahren nichts passiert ist unter Wasser. Und das sieht sehr gut aus für Gold.
Half an hour later, the first load comes out of the machine and into a large basket. It's still questionable if there's any gold among the rusty stones. The stones are rinsed with great care to prevent even the smallest piece of gold from getting washed away. The spoils are put to the side, and the basin is rinsed, just like the Klondike 2 centuries ago. The method hasn't changed a bit in 200 years. Nabi hasn't become rich through his gold seeking, but he is able to make a living from it, and certainly makes enough to get by. His dream is the same as every gold digger, finding that piece which will set him up for life.
Ich weiß, dass damals Kolumbus hierher gekommen ist und wollte Gold suchen. Er hat nicht so viel gefunden, das weiß ich auch. Nur dachte ich, was er nicht gefunden hat, das finde ich ganz einfach.
Columbus probably wouldn't have sat down in the freezing cold water for hours on end.
Beachten muss man, dass man sehr viel mit Wasser arbeiten muss. Ganz wichtig, dass Gold also immer unten bleibt, nicht mit rauswäscht. Guck mal, da haben wir es. Hier zum Beispiel. Ups. Ja, ist wunderschön, oder nicht? Ist doch herrlich, wenn es da aus dem Schwarzen plötzlich Gold rausleuchtet. Das ist ein herrliches Gefühl. Gold, was noch niemand in den Händen hatte, noch niemals vor mir. Das ist schon irre.
Half a day of hard work underwater has exhausted the team. Nabi has found gold worth $168. He's now that much further along on his quest for happiness.
Savor every detail. Feel every sound. Live every moment in high definition. Immerse yourself in stunning original programming and the very best of the Discovery networks. "24 hours a day, the highest quality HD available. Lose yourself in the feeling. Live every moment in high definition. Discovery HD Theater, your window on the world."
This is a short subject from Discovery HD Theater.
As it is for moths, so it is for frogs. Those that live during the day bear bright colors that signal their toxicity to predators. This is the case of the poison dart frog, whose skin secretes a poison of which a single gram could kill 10 people, and who can therefore show himself in the daylight with total impunity. However, most frogs are nocturnal creatures, which exposure to the sun would dehydrate, burn, dry up. Their colors are paler and more easily used for camouflage. This tree frog and its 2 babies will never touch the ground. They live exclusively in the treetops, almost 100 feet high, and can jump from branch to branch thanks to webbed fingers that allow them to control their trajectory. When morning comes, they hide beneath leaves to avoid being burnt by the daylight. Sitting like a piece of enamel on the enamel of a leaf, the glass frog, completely translucent, reveals its internal organs and especially the color of the object on which it rests. In the middle of the day, the slightest ray of sunlight would pass through its skin and flesh. Exposure to ultraviolet rays would be fatal. Just where does the veined, speckled leaf end and the body of the ornate tree frog begin? In broad daylight, the edge would be even less perceptible and the camouflage even more perfect.
The frontier between the Dominican Republic and the neighboring state of Haiti is Dajabon. This isolated mountain region has a flat and arid countryside. The air can get so hot that the locals count down to the cooler hours of nighttime. The Fiesta de Palos is named after the stick used to beat one of the drums. This type of traditional music is slowly dying out, but can still be heard today, mostly in the south and west of the Dominican Republic. The drums are beaten for hours to commemorate the saints, causing a trance-like state in the process. For outsiders, or even natives to the Dominican Republic, the lyrics may be unclear, but the emotions are not. The traditional music brings young and old alike together for fun. Luck and happiness in the borderlands mainly depend on what side of the island you are born on. The Dominican Republic looks like a true land of milk and honey when compared to the impoverished state of Haiti on the western side of Hispaniola. The door to paradise is opened just twice a week here in Dajabon. Haitian citizens are permitted to enter the Dominican Republic on Mondays and Fridays. Cars and trucks are not allowed, so any groceries bought are carried back on foot. Speed is key, as the normally impassable frontier is only open for a few short hours at a time. There is a dire shortage of basic foodstuffs in Haiti, including rice, bananas, maize, and eggs. The people who come here don't just buy for themselves. They also earn a few extra pesos, barely $1, for bringing things back for others. This bridge in no man's land spans the Rio Masacre. The shallow river separates these two countries whose ongoing battles have caused bloodshed throughout history. In 1937, this constant fighting led to a bloody massacre. The Dominican dictator Trujillo had thousands of Haitian citizens slaughtered here in the borderlands. Their bodies floated down the river in the hundreds, underlining the gruesome name of the river it had been given long before. Relations between both countries have been improving slowly in recent times, but the exchange of goods at Dajabon is only encouraged because both sides get something out of it. While groceries find their way into Haiti, small tradesmen from that country sell cheap clothing, household goods, and perfume to Dominicans. Market women from the Haitian capital Port-au-Prince can be on the road for days before they reach the Dominican Republic. They bring with them cheap American goods in the hopes of selling them. But they don't earn much when they do eventually arrive, as there are more traders than there are buyers. And there's a limited amount of time to peddle goods before the border closes.
Aquí dominicano no quiere comprar nada, es barata la quiere. Y uno paga mucho cuarto en la aduana para deduanarlo. Si uno después va a su mercado, si uno lleva a Haití, después para cruzar con él, tiene que vuelve a deduanarlo más, vuelve a pagarlo más.
The market is loosely surrounded by Dominican border guards who make sure that no one tries to stay in the country illegally. Haitians are welcome as sellers of cheap goods or as seasonal workers, but Dominicans fear that they are being overrun by their less fortunate neighbors. Exchanges are limited to strictly business. The border guards are armed with rubber hoses and announce that time is up and tell the traders to start packing up their stuff. They say there is usually no trouble.
Ellos saben que hasta las 2 de la tarde nada más la fe. Se van, están recogiendo.
These small traders have no intention of breaking through the barriers and instead will return for the next market, set up their goods once again, and try to sell them to their richer neighbors. In the east of the Dominican Republic is the green Samana Peninsula, a secret destination known to few. traveling along a winding, narrow mountain road. Perhaps that explains why mass tourism has not yet discovered this enchanting region. In Las Tarenas, there are picturesque beaches and a real Caribbean lifestyle free from the walls of the all-inclusive resorts. In the small fishing village of Punta Gorda, the pace of life slows a bit. From here, one can set off by boat into the mangrove forests on the other side of Samana Bay. During January and February, tourists come here to watch for humpback whales. Every winter, thousands migrate to these warm waters to give birth and mate. In the middle of summer, the many species of birds that populate the jutting cliffs are a delight to behold. Their sanctuary is the ideal place for nesting and rearing their young well away from human intrusion. The mangrove swamp in the Los Haitises National Park can only be reached by boat. It's best to hire a local guide who will be able to navigate the labyrinth of canals, offshoots, dead ends, and tranquil clearings. Mangroves can be found anywhere the water's temperature stays above 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Until recently, their positive effects on the environment were largely overlooked, and mangroves were regarded as useless vegetation. Now it's known they play a significant role, both on land and in the sea. Their thick roots protect the coast from hurricanes and storms, thus preventing erosion. While at the same time, they protect coral reefs from silting up. Mangroves function as wave breakers and natural windscreens, something the local villages in this storm-plagued area are thankful for. Los Haitises is filled with practically all the flora and fauna of the entire Dominican Republic. And as a national park, the rich variety of natural wonders and ecological diversity will be protected for the future. Equally as impressive as the natural environment are the remnants of the island's original inhabitants, the Arawak Indians. Cave paintings, engravings, and masks may be difficult to spot, but prove the existence of a people who thrived here before colonization. Now their land is part of the national park, and their caves home to colonies of bats. Not much is left of the original inhabitants of the island. Colonization took its toll when the Spanish arrived in 1492, and after 100 years, the Arawak population had nearly been destroyed. North of the tranquil national park is the livelier northern coast. It's here where Frenchman Gerard Pristas is headed to the local fish market. To purchase fresh fish for his restaurant, he sets off each morning to the beach and awaits the arrival of the catch of the day. Before anybody else can get his hands on the fish, Gerard rushes to have the fish weighed and put aside for him. The fish weighs in at almost 73 pounds, enough for about 60 portions. That's one part of the menu, but a meal doesn't just consist of tuna alone, so Gerard has to wait on the other fishermen before he can complete it. Gerard Pristas is regarded as the best chef on the entire island. But his art is highly dependent on whether the fishermen have been lucky. There's no telling whether they will deliver the doradas, a local favorite he's looking for today. First attempt, nada. Nothing.
Parce que la pêche n'est pas industrielle et est seulement artisanale. Et donc on n'a pas un volume de poissons assez important pour tout le monde, donc il faut bien surveiller. Et on a une période au mois d'août où il n'y a pas beaucoup de poissons. En décembre, par contre, il y a énormément de poissons, donc on peut se permettre que de faire acheter que par les acheteurs qui nous portent les poissons. Mais à cette époque, donc là il faut que j'aille voir tout de suite s'il y a du poisson, parce que s'il n'y a pas de poisson...
Next attempt. Nothing there either.
Là, c'est difficile aujourd'hui. Et voilà, on passe des heures sur la plage. Et il y a des jours, ça vient tout de suite. Il y a des jours, il y a 5, 6, 10 dorades à 11h, 11h30. Et là, il est déjà midi et il n'y a plus que 2 bateaux à venir. À mon avis, ils vont manger du temps aujourd'hui, les clients.
Waiting for hours for a couple of fish is a sheer luxury Gerard could never have in France. Time passes differently here, and at least his patience was well worth it. Finally, his freshly caught doradas.
C'est un endroit fantastique, je pense que c'est un petit paradis. On a une vie qui est beaucoup moins stressante qu'en Europe. Tout est naturel, tout n'est pas traité, on revit, je pense, une bonne époque, perdue un peu en Europe.
Gerard has been running his small, charming hotel Atlantis for 5 years with a passion. After being a personal chef and before coming here, he ran his own restaurant in Saint-Tropez. Gerard wanted to spend more time with his family and desired to live in an environment that was lower key. So he settled on Las Terrenas and has been creating French cuisine from local ingredients ever since. He's also introduced some new and surprising flavors to the locals.
Il y a beaucoup d'élevage de poulets, parce que dans le pays, les gens mangent quand même énormément de volailles. Ça fait partie des plats principaux ici. Le poulet, le riz. Donc c'est vrai que quand on arrive dans le pays, on est un petit peu déboussolé parce que c'est poulet, riz, habichuela. Les habichuelas, ce sont des gros haricots rouges. Et ça change parce que chez nous, c'est pas ça du tout. Donc il faut éduquer aussi un peu le goût aux gens. Parce que les Dominicains, comme la plupart n'ont pas énormément voyagé, donc n'ont pas l'habitude au palais tel que le fromage. Le chèvre est fabriqué ici aussi en République dominicaine. Donc tous ces goûts-là ne sont pas encore perceptibles à leur palais. Et petit à petit, eh ben, ils s'y font et puis ils apprécient et ils sont heureux de découvrir une autre cuisine.
Gerard Pristas has found a little piece of happiness here and serves it up to his guests in large servings. The basic ingredients for his paradise were already there. He simply added the rest, and voila.
Como dulce melodía, esa noche, tu nombre penetró en mis sentidos y se metió tan adentro, que por eso salir no he podido. Me coloqué como si fuera alto de magia en un espacio colorido imaginario. Sé cuando entra el deseo de mis ansias.
Local, the Dominican Republic offers a host of possibilities for the seeker of true happiness. Despite the challenges that life brings to everyone, here, somehow, they are simply washed away.
Ajústate, muchacho, no seas pendejo, que tú te vas a morir. Y aquí sí hay gente que sabe el bochinche, ¿eh?